Hello, I am Billie, and this is Show and Tell. Today is a unique episode. Normally, I'm talking about my knitting or vintage knitting and knitting from vintage patterns. But today I'm joined by a guest, Juliet, who's on the eastern part of the UK right now in a caravan. This is not an American word, so she's going to tell us in a minute what exactly that means. I think I know, but I'm going to let her say. Today we're going to be talking about stash and how we store it. So yeah, tell us, what is a caravan? Is it like a large vehicle that is a house that you take out on the road, or?
It's like an American Winnebago.
A Winnebago. Okay.
Yes, it's a little home on wheels. You tow it behind. But we don't tow anymore. We've got it on a site permanently because we're getting too old to tow.
And is this your primary residence, or do you have a different home somewhere else?
No, this is our holiday place.
Okay, so your stash, I'm assuming, is located elsewhere.
Yes. Oh, yeah, most of it all. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking, never know, all different lifestyles and different people.
True.
So
yeah,
I'm sure there are people out there who are watching who might live in a caravan or a mobile home, and they probably have very interesting storage solutions. So let's just jump right in and let's start to hear about how you store things on your mobile home, and then how you're storing things in your primary residence.
Yes. Well, usually mobile homes have got quite a few little cupboards under the seats and above you, either side. And so I just generally keep some under the chairs, underneath the seats, and then a bag under the table. And then I just take it in and out. But that's minuscule to what I've got at home.
Okay, so at home, is there a special place, many places?
Well, they've got a cupboard in the hall, and that's where it mainly is. I am being very good, and I haven't really, I bought some wool last week down here, but I haven't bought any yarn in particular ever since the pandemic, because during the pandemic I did buy. And it was ridiculous, really.
You bought because you had projects in mind, or you bought because you were bored, or?
Yes, it was a mixture. But I used to get the emails, from the companies saying this is a bargain and everything else. And of course, you couldn't go out. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. And you sort of had this different mindset, didn't you, in the pandemic, somehow. So I bought more. And then there was a lady down the road, because I run a knitting and crochet group for the University of the Third Age. I don't know whether you've heard of that.
No.
It's called, well, we call it U3A. It's something that we do in the UK. And there's lots of groups, different interests. But I run a knitting and crochet one. And a lady down the road rang up and said, would you like some yarn? So I said, oh, yes, because I can always take it to the group. And she had that much yarn that she'd bought in the pandemic, when we were at lockdowns. And I said, oh, I haven't been too bad in comparison to this. So I took it to the group, and a lot of people had it, and of course I've got some of that left. So I did say to the group at the end of October, if nobody wants any, I've got a shop I can donate it to, a charity shop that they support a children's home who have disabilities, and they sell in this craft shop for that. So I shall donate it there.
So in your home, you said you have this cupboard.
Yes.
Do you have drawers, or is it just on open shelving? Are they bagged? How is it kept?
A mixture on shelves and bags. I try to keep it in sort of double knitting, chunky, 4-ply, etc. So that I know when I want to do something, where to go for it.
So it's
So that's about
it's sorted by the weight of the yarn.
on shelves.
Okay, not by color.
Yes. No. Oh, yes, some of them. Well, yes, sort of like in the double knitting, I would say have pinks or whatever.
So you were saying about the pink.
Yes, I do try, say, for instance, pinks. I'll try and keep them into pinks and whites. But of course, when you go in, it'll start getting muddled up. It's like anything, like any drawer or shelf, it gets muddled up when you use it. So
we're having a bad connection. Sometimes you just, everything gets all fuzzy.
Right.
Ooh, this is hard.
Does it? It's probably where we are then.
Yes.
Connection might not be too good.
Right. Well, okay, it's good now. So you're saying, like anybody's drawer, after you're using it for a while, things get all mixed up inside the drawer. Yes, I know that feeling very well. It's hard to keep up with these things when really what we all want to be doing is knitting, not arranging, I think. You know, guilty. I'd much rather be knitting than sorting out my yarns or posting them on Ravelry. Do you use Ravelry to list your yarns? Okay. The very first chat that we had about stash, there was a woman named Denise who specifically asked me, well, how do you store your yarn? You've never shared. Well, I actually did share in an early episode, but to answer her now, I will show how I store my yarn. It's a little embarrassing. Let me see if I can lift this while I'm sitting. It's heavy. I might have to get up. Okay. This is it. This bin. It probably weighs about 35 or 40 pounds. You can see my muscle flex. I'm going to put it down. And I will take off the lid to show what this is, because I think it's a really good product. In the United States, there's a big chain of stores called the Container Store, and they sell all different types of containers. So this one is watertight. There's a little foam strip that goes all around that really, when you close the lid and clamp all there, on this particular one, there are 6 clamps, 2 on this edge, 2 on this edge, and 1 on either end. So it's really clamped tightly all around, keeping out any unwanted pests. And it stores quite a bit. I mean, I don't really have a lot of yarn because I buy yarn as I'm embarking on a new project. So just to give you an idea, like here's some leftovers from my Mary Maxim jacket. This is leftover from a crochet blanket I made as a teenager. It called for yellow flowers. I never put the flowers on. I just kept it all ivory. But I thought, since I made the flowers, maybe I should keep them in case one day I had a yellow bedroom and I wanted to put the flowers on. I have a whole skein of Madeline Tosh from sweater that I finished knitting for my friend's mother that she had begun and wasn't able to finish. So there's a lot of, you know, odds and ends. There's no sweaters quantity. It's just one-off random things like this, which, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever do anything with them. And then I have some other odds and ends, like I have a bottle of freight check in here, which I needed when I was steeking my cobweb weight jumper that really wasn't yarn meant for steeking. So I needed this. also, some of you will know that my mother-in-law passed away recently, and I was going through her knitting stuff and I found some old vintage books. So those are in here as well. But yeah, it's a lot of odds and ends and not much. If I were to purchase a sweater's quantity of yarn for a project, I would put it in here. I have room for a sweater's quantity. And then after that sweater is done, then I'd have room again for my next project. I did also want to point out that I use these storage bags, and you could see not consistently, not everything that's in there, but you know, we all try and do as I say, but not as I do. So I have to confess, I'm not religious about it, but I have these gigantic Ziploc plastic bags. This is the right size for a sweater. I can fold up most any sweater that I've ever knit and put it in one of these. And that's how I store them in my closet. But if I'm bringing in yarn that I don't know about, I will want to isolate it in here. And if I'm skeptical at all about where it came from, I will keep it in my freezer for a couple of days. And then, yeah, I could put it into this storage bin in that bag just to make sure that if it's contaminated, it doesn't contaminate anything else. I also pulled out to show that I have this little bottle of cedar spray because part of storing and caring for our yarn is making sure that they don't get attacked by unwanted pests, right? So I have a variety of different cedar products. There are these little cedar balls, and there are also these discs that have a hole. You can put this, you can put a wire hanger, like put it through the hook of the hanger. And then my husband had bought these once upon a time in a men's store. They're also cedar. After a while, the original cedar odor, which moths dislike, that odor evaporates. So you can refresh it by spraying this stuff on, and it restores the cedar scent to anything. So periodically I go through my closets and I pull these out and I give a little spray. I don't put it back in the closet right away because it has kind of like an oiliness to it, but I'll do, you know, several of them and let them dry a bit and then put them in. I try not to get it in contact with the wool, but usually it's, you know, hanging above the clothing, which is further down. So, you know, just a few of my own personal things. Carol, who was here with us the first conversation, wasn't able to be here today, but she was kind enough to send me an email saying something about how she organizes her stash. So let me go ahead and read this to you. She said, first, for the most part, it's all listed in Ravelry. Since I have many, many skeins in a variety of colors of much of my yarn, I list like together, i.e. all the Utopia is one listing, all the Utopia Sport is one listing, all the Utopia Baby is one listing, each yarn having its own listing, but not each color having its own listing. For occasional things, if part of the yarn is designated to a specific project, that yarn might have its own listing. Using this format, I can link the yarn to a project and keep track of it that way as I use it. Yarn that is in projects or is lined up to be in projects is in the house. Some of that is stored in labeled bins. Some of it is on shelving. In the loft, where the bulk of the yarn lives, almost everything is in labeled bins or on shelving. Cones are shelved. I think I've listed bin numbers in the stash listings on Ravelry, but maybe not, as I've played around with it recently, so it might not be updated. However, since like is together, binned or shelved, and I spend a lot of time with the yarn, it's pretty easy to find something when I'm looking for it. This year, I'm hoping to do a new inventory, as I know some things have gotten lost in space. I've been updating a bit at a time. I'm also trying to use up as much as possible of the coned yarns. as that is A, where the bulk of my yardage is. And since I'm not getting any younger, I'm trying to reduce what I have so the kids don't have to deal with it. And B, they weigh a lot, so are expensive to move. We hope to move closer to one of our kids as soon as we find a place that meets our specifications. And since it will be an interstate move, we want to pare everything we own down as much as possible. Is there yarn all over the house? Yes, but it's mostly confined to specific places where I actually work. The pre-planned yarn is in a spare bedroom in bins and on shelves. The active yarn is in workspaces. So first, let me say thank you, Carol, for sending me this and going into great detail. I hope that some people watching find that useful. Ravelry is a great place to list your yarns. There are a lot of different features. You can post things that you're willing to sell or trade it. You might remember that Carol was the one who had a vast amount of stash because she's a crocheter. And the article, I had put a link to the article that Helen had sent me while we were all chatting that described how much more yarn crocheting takes up than knitting. So I think, you know, that's an interesting factor to consider, that if you crochet as opposed to knit, that you may have a lot more stash. But certainly, you know, Ravelry is a great place to post, and there's a place where you can check. The default does not check that you're willing to sell or trade it, but there is a place where you can check off if you are interested in selling some of the yarn that you have in stash. And if you put pictures there, people can see what you've got, which really I should probably do. I do have some things listed on Ravelry in my stash, and I think I have them pretty much marked if they're available for sale or not. But I don't have a whole lot except, you know, partial balls of things that I had knit. So that's about all that I can say. I'm sure that people watching have many, many other suggestions and solutions. So I welcome you to reach out to me. I would gladly invite you to come on the show and tell us. If you're more comfortable just writing comments below to describe how you handle whatever you have, if you have a lot, if you have a little. I don't know if I'm the only person, but I think it's really interesting to know what people do. And I know for a fact that there are some people out there who have 5 figures in their inventory. It's not in a shoebox. It's got to be contained or stored somewhere somehow. And maybe some people have very interesting ideas. Carol said she labels some of the bins. I'm sure that there are people who sort it by color. Other people like Juliet, they're sorting it by the weight of the yarn, but I'd love to hear from you. How are you storing it? How are you sorting it? How are you managing it? How do you know what you've got? Do you have a list somewhere? If not on Ravelry, do you have it in a book? What is everybody around the world doing? Do you have bins that are different from my bins? Bring them on the show. Let's see what you got. Juliet, you're muted, but if you have something else that you want to say before we close up this abbreviated session.
I didn't think, well, I never thought of putting it on Ravelry, but sometimes I do find it difficult to find my way around Ravelry. So I don't know why, but I do. So
so
I've
maybe
tried to look on your site quite a lot.
After you and I, sorry to interrupt you, maybe after you and I are done talking, maybe I'll do a little video presentation and tack it on here to show where you go. I can do that. I can do like a screenshot of what I'm doing, and that might be interesting. Yeah, maybe there are people who have explored that depth of Ravelry.
Thank you.
Ravelry is
yes, it was
amazing. And there's so many features there that, yeah, if you don't use them, you may not know. Okay, good deal.
Yes, that would be quite a good episode. That would.
Okay,
I would have thought. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. To the people who are watching at home, thank you for being here. Love to see you, maybe in person someday. Take care for now, and I'll try and add something on here. Thanks for being here, Juliet. Nice to see you again.
Okay, my pleasure. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Here I am on my Ravelry profile page. You'll know it's your profile page because you'll see your name here, and underneath it tells you that you can edit your profile. Here you can see that I have only 9 things listed in my stash. If I click on that, it shows you that I've got 8 items in my stash and 1 used up and 1 that I'm willing to trade or sell. I'm not sure which one that is. But as you can see, most of these are not full skeins. 219 yards, that might be a full skein. So I clicked on that one. It says it's in stash and not for sale. Well, I could list that for sale, but I know it's gray and I'm likely to use it someday. So I'm going to just go arrow back to where I was. I don't know if that's a full skein. No, half a skein. So I wouldn't look to sell that. Nobody would want to buy it. 191 yards. That is a full skein. And that's hot pink, the color Way Barbara. So yeah, I might make a beret with that someday. I'm not sure which one is will trade or sell. Let me click on that and see what it says. Oh, that's why it's not listed there. Yes, all of these Rowan yarns that I have behind here, these are all available for trade or sale. So I do actually have these listed, you see. Now, if I wanted to add something, let me just go back here. See this little button? It says add to stash. You would click on that and it gives you an opportunity to select where you purchased this yarn, if it was at a local yarn store, if it's recycled, if you bought it at a festival, the name of the yarn, the company brand, and I've already put these stores in as stores where I have shopped. So Ravelry is smart. It knows it. So if it was from someplace that I already shopped, it would be there for me. I think these vendors are also known to Ravelry's database, but you could always enter right here the name of the store. So if you were not familiar with that, now you are. It's a really good place to list your stash, especially if you're looking to trade or sell it. If I'm in my profile and I want to go into my projects, I think there's a way to show your yarn here as well. So for example, let me choose this one. I believe that I put this yarn into my stash. I forget now. I believe there is a way to have this reduce your stash. Well, I guess when I purchased it and I started this project, I entered that I had 6 skeins. When I'm all done, I think there's a way, maybe, oh yes, if I edit the project, if I had yarn left over, I think I could enter the total that I used, and I think the rest of it might go into stash. You have to play around with this a little because I'm not 100% sure, but you see it says use stash yarn. I suppose if I had a large stash and I was pulling from my stash to knit this project, I would select that I want to use something from my stash, and it would take it out of my stash and know that it was in use here. But I do believe at the end, if I record a different amount, it would have adjusted the quantity if I had this in stash. I'm not doing this really clearly, but I think you probably get the gist of it, and you'll just go ahead and play around with it on your own. But do put it here, because if somebody's looking for something, like let's say I go into yarns and I'm looking for Rowan felted tweed, for example. So here's felted tweed. Right up here where it says stashes, 44,000 people have it in their stash. I can see all these stashes. There's 500 pages worth of Rowan felted tweed in people's stash. But you can also select that you only want to look at the people who are willing to trade or sell it. So let's see how that drops it down. Now there's only 16 pages from those 500 pages. So if I was interested in, let's say, these, I could contact that person. I could go click on them, and I would go to Zlaty's profile page and send Zlaty a message to say, are you willing to sell it to me? Because I see you're in France and there would be some shipping involved. Maybe I don't want to contact that person for that reason. I'm in the United States and shipping might be prohibitive. So if I'm looking for this color, duck egg, I think that I can also search for who's selling duck egg. I can put in here duck egg. And let's see how many pages worth. It's just this one page. There's only 5 different people. Zlaty is one of them. Let's see where these other people are. This person doesn't say what country they're in, but they say $10, including shipping in the US. $10 for each skein. And you see it does say here, will trade or sell. And right from here, you can send them a message. So it's very, very well organized. I hope that's also helpful to you. Okay, folks, I'm going to be back real soon. Keep an eye out. If you haven't already subscribed, this is the moment you want to subscribe, because very soon I'm going to be interviewing Squidney Knits, and I'm also going to be interviewing a woman named Melissa who's got some vintage spinning wheels, and I'm not sure what else she's going to be sharing with us, but there are things coming in the not too distant future, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. So like this, if you enjoyed it, do subscribe to the channel, set the little bell for notifications, and then you'll find out when I will be podcasting next. Take care, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the rest of the summer. Bye for now.